All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Saturday Saturday night. We're having the VAC roundtable today. Joining us today is Ricardo Pereira, Robert Kowalski, and George Armstrong. My name is Etienne Fontan. I am a combat veteran of Desert Shield, Desert Storm, and also a member of the Veterans Action Council. I will be your guest tonight. I am a near 30-year cannabis activist, and I have been involved in the cannabis movement ever since pretty much about a year or so after my war was over. Uh, I had um, I had a wasting syndrome called Gulf War syndrome, which affected my nerves and appetite, and how I had permanent nerve damage, and I had blisters on my feet. And while I was trying to get off of morphine, that the military was more than happy to give me, um, a brave doctor in Germany recommended hashish. Now, of course, hashish is legal, and there was no way for me to actually fill my prescription. But inadvertently, this was how I started in the cannabis industry. Why I stayed in the cannabis industry and why I continue to stay in the cannabis industry, I'll explain later on. But I'd like to go to our guests tonight, and others will roll in as we go. um, Ricardo Pereira, what brought you to the cannabis industry and why the cannabis industry?
Well, uh, Good to be back on the Saturday Night Round Table for VAC. Happy to be a member of the council. Um, I've always been around cannabis. Cannabis has always been around me. I've always known people who were using it. I started using it at a young age. Although, at that age, I wasn't categorizing it as medicinal or anything other than getting high, right? As a kid. When I came back from Iraq and I was being prescribed a lot of pills that were having a lot of adverse side effects. And I reached out to a friend of mine and got about an ounce or so and took it back with me to Sierra Vista. And felt great again. Was up doing yard work, was doing chores around the house, walking the dog, uh, going about my day to day. But I was still technically on active, or not active, but in the Army going through my medical board. And my wife at the time didn't approve of me using that, right? Very conservative household, her upbringing. And it was just like, great, now we got drugs in the house, but this is going down fast, right? And so I let it go, went back on the pills, and same thing, just kind of spiraled out of control again. And ended up getting divorced. Finally got my honorable discharge in 2009 and was able to think for myself again, right? I could go against medical advice, whereas in the 3 years during my medical board process, I couldn't. So I started to wean myself off of the prescriptions, and I was just using flower as I can get it. But I started going back to the University of Arizona, got involved in a lot of stuff there, volunteering, and held different leadership roles, representing the student body on or the veteran student body on campus to administrators and whatnot. So it really wasn't something that was talked about. If you knew me, you knew that I smoked. If you were over at my house, you knew that I smoked. So I didn't hide it at my home, but I didn't bring it to work. And so for 3 years, I did that tightrope. And then met Sue Sisley, Doc Sisley, through the Flynn Brown Fellowship. Had been following her work, but because of the various roles I had held, I wasn't able to come out one way or another for cannabis, right? The most I could say was that I was interested and learning more about her work or something to that extent. And once I was no longer in those leadership roles, and I graduated this fellowship program, we started working with one another. And then shortly thereafter, she got fired. So that's what brought me into the movement, right? And from then, it's just been kind of full speed ahead. It's about 7 years ago, I started working with Doc, and it was important then. It's still important now. We've lost a lot of service members to suicide and to the opioid epidemic since then, in those 7 years. Our talking points really hasn't changed, but the political atmosphere has. So that's how I got here in kind of a nutshell. Hi, James.
Good evening.
Thank you for that, Rico. Okay, so Mr. Armstrong, why the cannabis industry? What brought you here?
Much like Rico, excuse me, much like Rico, I would say that cannabis was a part of my life, pretty much my whole life, even prior to my service. I say that I was the last one to figure it out, even though I was a recreational smoker growing up. So I came into a mental health crisis in 2011 and started asking for help. And within a few months was on 5 or 6 different prescriptions and more than 20 pills a day. And turns out I suicidal ideations. So I was in a really bad spot really fast. And at the same time, I had just moved. So I know a way to get my cannabis. So I just thought nothing of, well, I'm moving out of state, and until I find someplace to get cannabis where I can trust it, I won't smoke cannabis, or I will, bring a ½ ounce with me for every month or two. So literally just not enough to notice anything. And I literally saw a CNN special one night, and just had an aha moment where I said, oh my God, maybe cannabis made me feel so good all the time, not because I like getting high, but because it actually helped me medically. So I went out and found medical cannabis, and literally, if you ask me why I joined the movement, like when I found that out, I came out of a pretty bad place. And within 6 months, I literally just thought, why would I not yell this from the rooftops? Why would I not tell everybody about this? If I was a recreational smoker and I didn't figure it out, like I was still assuming that I was just getting high to get high, right? And then when it was taken away and I started to see the medical differences, that was without it, with or without the pills. If I went without smoking weed, I noticed a significant difference. So that's what I tell people. The reason I got into it is because I literally just felt the calling as soon as I had that, and that was about 5 years ago. And I didn't become an advocate really even on purpose. I kind of I came out about my cannabis use, and I started being really loud about it, and it attracted a little bit of attention. And before I knew it, I was going to events and being asked to speak at events and going to normal meetings. And so it just kind of happened. But I made the conscious decision that I wasn't going to keep what I learned to myself. I think it's something that should be shared with society, that they're being lied to, that they've been lied to for decades, that it's probably the most medicinal plant on the planet, and our government is holding it from us. So if I had to pin down one thing, it would be just that. It would be the fact that when I figured it out, I was like, wow, if I couldn't accept medical cannabis for what it was, and I'm somebody who used it regularly, how hard is it going to be for other people if they're still feeling these stigmas? So I literally went into it just trying to break that stigma and educate people that it can be a life-saving medicine.
Thank you, George. Now we're going to go around to Mr. James Shickley. Hi, Mr. Shickley. You can unmute yourself.
There we go. I think we got it. How's that?
There you go. So why the cannabis movement is the question tonight.
Why the cannabis movement? Well, I'm kind of an old guy here. Man, I'm like 70, gonna be. And I've been at this since I was 17 years old, for God's sake. It's been, and it hasn't happened other than people keep pushing and pushing. And in the past few years, I got back into it again because I was pretty sick, and I was laid up on all kind of drugs, and I still have a morphine pump in me, and I was on Oxycontin, the whole schmear, and it was like, what a drag. I couldn't do anything. For years, I just laid in bed here. And then somebody come around with some good cannabis, and by God, I started puffing a little bit, and I started feeling better because I was sick constantly. I threw up day in and day out just from the morphine. It made me sick constantly, and so I came around to the movement again, and struck up a few people out in the world, and some of them were still there from the old days, and a lot of them are dying off nowadays, but I still like to get my finger in it when I'm healthy enough to go to an activity somewhere. I like to get out of the house and go. I'm not a medical patient. My Second Amendment rights just have me kind of beat feet in this whole deal. And so that's where I stand. I'm all for it 100%. I'll help anybody I can. I've been down the drug road where I was on so many drugs I couldn't get out of bed. Simple as that. And I don't do any of them no more. I'm strictly a cannabis person, and that's my life now. I use a lot, but at the same time, it's worth it. I sure feel better. I'm out and about again, doing lively things from time to time. Okay, back over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, James. That was wonderful, and we appreciate your perspective. Tonight, again, this is the Veterans Action Roundtable number 2, and we're talking why the cannabis movement. And up next is Mr. Robert Kowalski. Mr. Kowalski, how you doing tonight?
Hey, good. Glad to be here for this second of, I hope, many to come roundtable discussions. My story is a little bit different as to what brought me here than the others, and the fact that I really wasn't surrounded by cannabis at all growing up. It was more of the taboo thing. I grew up under the whole DARE program where drugs were bad and you listen to your doctor and pharmaceuticals are good. And I didn't really try it until I was like a senior in high school for the first time. I didn't really do it all too much. Then joined the military right after school. So living the military lifestyle, one, you're not allowed, and two, there's really not time, especially for not what I did, until after my second deployment. I was really struggling with my issues. And during my post-deployment assessment before leaving country, I was already under the diagnosis that I was susceptible to post-traumatic stress disorder. And through that assessment, you're supposed to be seen within weeks of returning home from country. So I was not. It took months, 6 months actually, before I was ever seen by a medical professional. And in those 6 months, I was in a downward spiral of just chaos, not sleeping, drinking a lot, trying to just do everything I could to either sleep or maintain myself. And it got to a point to where I started losing time. So I was essentially blacking out and functioning all at the same time. And it scared the hell out of me. And it was that scare that essentially led me to the idea that if I could utilize a substance for sleep, because NyQuil, the alcohol and all that wasn't working, then I would function better. And I started utilizing cannabis while I was active duty waiting for help. And it was working. I was sleeping, and because I was sleeping, I was able to show up to work and do my job, and finally got my diagnosis and started getting put on the pill regimen. So I did the pill regimen for a while, trying to get that to work, and that didn't work. But in the meantime, once I realized the pills weren't working, they were really pushing a gambit of not understanding what I was dealing with. And so the medications were having like severe effects on me almost immediately. And so I reverted back to the cannabis use. And it was through that transition back to cannabis use while I was active that raised the red flags and got me to pop hot on a random urinalysis that then led to my discharge with a general under honorable for the use of
how do you like my shield?
Cannabis.
You ready to see?
One moment. There seemed a little technical difficulty going on there. So again, we're talking about why the cannabis movement. And give Robert just one moment. Should be right back with us, hopefully. As we know, we have some people have tiny humans.
Hey, sorry about that. And so it was through that in my discharge that I became homeless. I lost everything, and had to find places to sleep and started couch hopping. Ended up moving into my grandparents' basement and seeking VA treatment. I didn't have anything, no money, no anything. So I was kind of stuck in a situation to where I had to take the VA medication. And I went through this process for an entire year to where they just started compiling medication on top of medication for me until finally I got my VA rating. And it was my VA rating and the back pay for the year that the VA gave me that I said, all right, I'm done with this. And I left Ohio and went out to Arizona and became a medical patient in Arizona. And I did that for I was out there for a couple of years as a patient, kind of treating myself, walking through the VA system and trying to deal with that. Fortunately, I had some of you elders and some of the work that you all did early on to kind of support my effort and weeding through the system. And then ultimately ended up moving back to Ohio because I had my grandmother was sick. And it was through her getting sick and eventually passing away and it driving my agoraphobia down pretty hardcore that I realized I had no purpose anymore. And I needed to find that purpose in order to make myself better. And so I then decided that cannabis was probably that purpose for me because it was helping me so much to eliminate my medication. It helped my grandmother before she passed away. And all of the other patients I got to interact with for the 2 years I was out in Arizona. And so it was ultimately that push of one, healing myself through a greater purpose other than what I felt I had at the time. And two, more of like a moral responsibility that people should really know about this. And I was going to do whatever I could, whenever I could, to ensure that people knew about it. So back to you.
Thank you, Robert. That was quite enlightening. We're going to go on to Mr. Tony Landry. Why the cannabis movement?
Well, it started out, cannabis was something I used kind of recreational out, when I got out of high school until I joined the military. And then I didn't use it at all in the military for 6 years. And when I got out, I left the military with service-connected injuries to my back, non-combat related injuries. But while I was active duty, I had several injuries on my back and got out and worked on topping machines for about 3 years, lifting on those, and ended up, finishing up my back, 2 back surgeries. And it started on about a 15-year odyssey of just every kind of pharmaceutical, the VA would give me, I'd take it, and it just put me in a bad place that I've never been. Some of these medications I've never taken before, and they were very addictive. One of them was OxyContin, and OxyContin was so addictive to me. I eventually just said, I got enough of this. I'm not going to let anything control me like this. And so I started, veering away from the opiates and trying, to combat my pain with ibuprofen and aspirin. And, it ended up started affecting my stomach, and taking aspirin or BC powder or something, I'd start getting heartburn and stomach ache. And so I found out about hemp CBD, and I said, well, let me give it a try, So after it took about 2 weeks before I noticed any difference. It wasn't an overnight thing. I just started taking it like it was prescribed on the bottle. And after about 2 weeks, I noticed I wasn't taking, I'd carry around BC powders in my pocket, and then they started going through the washing machine. I wasn't taking them anymore. I'd put a couple in my pocket in the morning, and they'd end up going through the laundry. So I realized, okay, something about this hemp CBD, and I just started learning, studying about the endocannabinoid system and how, when we're deficient in cannabinoids, our body's not making enough of them. We get the pain and all this, and when we get some supplements, it helps out. So after learning about it and studying about this endocannabinoid system, I tried, I started up a group in Louisiana, advocacy group. I started working on Louisiana's cannabis law, And they had a medical program, but they didn't allow chronic pain or PTSD. And so I started advocating in 2018. We were successful in adding those ailments to their program, but they don't have much of a program. There's no flour. There's just the oils and tinctures and suppositories, stuff like that. It's no flour. So after we got chronic pain added, we had an opportunity. My wife and I had an opportunity just to leave Louisiana, and so we sold everything. We had some rental property down there. We sold our homes, and we moved out to Arizona to take advantage of their medical cannabis program. And so since then, fortunate we were able to move a citizen-led ballot initiative through here in Arizona, and we have home grow legal adult use 21 and over coming. As soon as the governor signs a bill, we'll be able to start planting seeds in the ground here. So why cannabis? Just because it works. It helps me avoid dangerous narcotics and alcohol. Alcohol down in Louisiana, it was like traveling on an old dirt road, and every time something happened that somebody didn't pay rent on a rent house or tore up my rent house, I'd go to alcohol and start trying to soothe that emotional, pain, just thinking that I was going to take it away. And it ended up bogging me down in just an old mud hole. I couldn't get out of it. I try, I couldn't get out of it. So whenever I left Louisiana and got to Arizona and tried cannabis, I was able to lower those cravings. It didn't take it all away, but it helped out. And so that's one reason I just continue to advocate and stick my neck out there for people that can't. Some people are isolated or maybe bedridden veterans that's can't get up out of bed to go advocate. So that's why cannabis. I'm working to help the people that can't help themselves.
Thank you, Tony. That's a wonderful perspective. Appreciate you. Next up is Mr. Michael Krawitz. Michael, so how you doing this evening, and why the cannabis movement?
Doing pretty good, man. Sorry I'm a few minutes late. Just dropped in. I'm not sure that question works for me. I'm gonna dispute the premise of that question. I would actually kind of reverse it and say, why the military? Why did this cannabis activist join the military? It's a strange world. The thing is that back in the 1970s in New Jersey, we were the epicenter of like the cannabis world. I mean, it was nothing like kids in high schools could probably imagine today. If you've ever watched the some of the movies, kind of high school movies with Fast Times, Richmond High, and a couple others, kind of capture the essence of high school back in the 70s in New Jersey. At that time, though, the national normal, if you remember, sort of imploded with a cocaine scandal. Is the Carter administration, and President Carter had announced that we're going to legalize marijuana in the United States, that an ounce of marijuana or less would be no longer a criminal offense. And I think it was 1978. And that was it. Marijuana was going to be legalized. We were going to be pipes. That was my brother's idea. And sure enough, that blew up. Dr. Bourne, what we now call the drug czar, it was their medical advisor for Carter administration, got caught up in a pot party and cocaine party, and Keith Stropp from NORML kind of left him out to dry and let the media attack him and created a huge scandal. I remember the front page of the High Times magazine with big cartoon picture of President Carter's face sniffing a line of cocaine. And it was a strange time with the marijuana movement sort of combining for a moment with cocaine, that cocaine and marijuana could somehow be together in the soft drug category. I think today people would probably feel that was a mistake. Coca leaf, I think, could probably be with cannabis in the soft drug category. But when you start processing it into powder and to flakes of smokable form or whatever, I think you've crossed the line and you're no longer in soft drug category. But anyway, that was the lesson that we learned the hard way. And I joined the military because I really didn't see any future in that. I've thought recently, actually pretty recently, I thought about what it would have been like if I had actually met up with Michael Aldrich and those guys who are working already on their second or third generation of the cannabis movement out west, really uninterrupted by such scandal, sort of a more mature movement on the West Coast than the East Coast, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. But yeah, that was my world, and I escaped it. Went into the military, jumped on a plane, went to went to Guam, but that got interrupted. That all got interrupted with an accident in Guam. Got hurt really bad. Cut short military career that was actually pretty promising. I was signed up to go to training to learn how to fly a Huey helicopter, and they were going to give me this great crossover deal where I was leaving the Air Force and going to the Army, and they were going to give me a stripe or two. I think 2 stripes. They were going to, no, I guess it's just 1 stripe. They were going to make me a tech sergeant from a sergeant, and put me in the Army, put me in the training. Once I succeeded in the training, then I'd be a warrant officer. And I got a kick out of that I'd already become a sergeant without going to NCO IS and NCO training school. And then I would become an officer without ever going to officers training school. That would be a heck of a bypass circuit. I got a kick out of that. But anyway, I got put out on a military disability discharge. It wasn't a retirement, but they gave me a disability separation, a small amount of compensation, and sent me out to go talk to the VA, who gave me a larger compensation. And to this day, I've been a cannabis activist, ironically using the money that the government gives me in compensation to pay for my living expenses while I fight the government and fight the government's policy. It's the ultimate form of freedom, I think, ultimate expression of freedom in our democracy. So, but the long story short of it, I actually repeated a trip that I was going to have when I was in the military. I was supposed to go across Asia. I had this trip. I worked for months before I changed duty stations, and I was changed my separation. My protocol from Guam, I changed it to Tokyo, and then I was flying from Tokyo to San Francisco, and I had the official duty roster, duty travel to go to Korea and Thailand, and fantastic trip I had planned. It took me months and months and months to get that all set up with military orders, and I had my accident. So when I got out of the military, I duplicated that trip, but I couldn't duplicate it in Asia because it was just cost prohibitive. So I figured out that I could go across Europe, actually camp places, save a lot of money, you take transportation, mass transit and stuff, and actually do a very inexpensive trip across Europe. So that's what I did. And while I was over there, I honestly didn't even know that they had done this already, but Prop 215 was just happening. This was 1996. And Prop 215 was just happening in the US, and I didn't even know it, but they already had a program in the Netherlands, in Holland, of cannabis access through the pharmacy. And I actually went to a doctor just so I'd have a doctor in Europe, just somebody that knew my medical conditions and I could call if I had an emergency. Honestly, that was the only reason I went to the doctor. And I stepped right into this whole thing and got a cannabis prescription in Holland. Got container, it was Mary Farm cannabis back then. I got my container of Mary Farm cannabis. I was so impressed that I could get a prescription, not a recommendation or anything fancy, trickery just to get around the law. This is absolutely above the boards, legal prescription through the pharmacy system. And when I came back to the United States, that's, I got connected with these guys that were starting this new organization, the Marijuana Policy Project. Later, another lady that was very adamant and very, very motivated, starting the Americans for Safe Access. So, I joined up with the right people, I guess. And kind of, you might say the rest is history, but really that was it. That me coming back from Holland and having this prescription. I spoke at the United Nations in 1998 and was invited to do a side panel presentation. I spoke, and it was a real big part of that speech, the fact that as a US citizen, as a disabled veteran, good standing, the Dutch government didn't owe me anything, but yet they treated me with respect. It felt like they were respecting my medical needs, and the United States government wasn't. And that's kind of where the veteran stakeholder group was born. I'm quick to point out anytime I'm ever around anybody, that the veterans were always there, that they've been leaders in every aspect of the movement. Dr. Mick Garea, veteran, Dennis Perone, veteran, Jack Herer, veteran, on and on. The backbone of our movement has been veterans. But nonetheless, until we started talking about it, until we got a VA policy, particularly in 2010, we really didn't have a veteran stakeholder group in the marijuana movement. So I'm proud to be part of that, and one of the old timers. I'm glad not, I don't know if I'm glad not to be the oldest guy in the room, but it's kind of refreshing not to be the oldest guy in the room. But it's really awesome to be here, and I couldn't think of a better thing to do in my retirement. I owe everything. If you want to actually, now that I said all that, I got a nutshell answer for you why cannabis activism. It's my wife, because she said to me, hey, you're complaining all the time, talking about this stuff. Why don't you do something about it? Honestly, she got me started. So there you go.
Well, thank her for kicking you in tush and getting you off the actual couch, because sometimes it just takes a little motivation. And you're a mentor to me, and you're a reason why I'm here. So needless to say, we all have to thank. Now we're going to bring it over to Mr. Brian Ortega. How you doing tonight, Brian? Why the cannabis movement is tonight's question.
Greetings, gentlemen. Thank you all for holding this meeting and doing what you do. It's a little heavy. I wasn't prepared. I thought we were just hanging out and going over policy and stuff like we normally do. But tackle a little bit of Mr. Landry's story. Very similar, but in a nutshell, why the cannabis movement? My family, my son, and everybody else that shouldn't be criminalized for choosing to take healing into their own hands. Excuse me. And in 2009, I was medically retired from the military with PTSD, traumatic brain injuries, had degenerative and slip disc. My knees were bad, flat feet, everything, you name it, just got beat up. So they booted me out and didn't meet retention standards anymore. Gave me a plethora of Western medicine and sent me on my way. And I thought that was it. They gave me a paycheck and said, they screwed you up, son, but we're going to take care of you. And that was Prozac, lithium, opioids. I was taking the most maximum dose you can take of opioids to numb the pain, but it was 10 years pretty much went by before I figured out it was causing my pain. And I was a slave to the medication. There was not a day that went by where I didn't wake up and curse the sun for coming up, because it was another day of pain. And the first thing I could think about was, where's my pills? Where are my medication? And I didn't want to live like that anymore. I knew it was only going to be a matter of time before I had an accidental overdose, or I just wanted to end my life myself, because it was not a life. I wasn't living. I wasn't a good dad. I wasn't a good husband. I wasn't a good person. I felt like a monster. So I packed up everything that I own, or that I could fit in a 33-foot travel trailer, sold everything else, put my house on the market, and went to Colorado to heal. And I did. But during that time, I moved to Colorado January 2017. In August of that same year, I got into engineering school, and I also received a restraining order from the state of Texas that I couldn't bring my son to Colorado or have communication with him until we figured out what was going on. I was being taken to court for some BS, but they used cannabis as a way to stop me from seeing my son. So I got better, and I didn't want nobody else should have to go to jail or lose their family because they want to heal. I know I'm 100% more of a productive citizen than I ever would have been if I would have stayed in Texas and continued to eat pills. I wasn't healing. I wasn't going anywhere. I wasn't going to do anything with my life, much less usher my children to be better people and help them grow and be successful in life. My father, I always saw my father go to work, and he was a boss, and he dressed nice, and people respected him, and that did a lot for me. I didn't want my kids to have what I was as an example of what a man is, even what a veteran is. We're better than that. We're stronger than that. So activism, cannabis movement, I got better. I found healing, and nobody else should have to be oppressed or treated wrong or criminalized for finding what I found. And that's why I do what I do.
Thank you, brother. That was straight from the heart. Appreciate you much. So for me, you know, the journey was, I grew up kind of like Robert in rural Louisiana, and there was no, there was no cannabis around where I was growing up, none at all whatsoever. And so, I mean, I grew up completely, you know, believing all the lies and mistruths and everything. And I did try cannabis when I was 16, but it was a friend of mine, and I'm pretty sure she was, yeah, she was getting bad Mexican. It was just not really good stuff. So it wasn't really till I went to West Virginia that I actually tried real cannabis, and which is real, you know, harvested flower, as opposed to we were getting Mexican pressed brick, black seeds, Coca-Cola pressed, just horrible, horrible pot. And Jack Herrera actually came to West Virginia University in 1989, and he basically had the book The Emperor Wears No Clothes, and I was so terrified because I was trying to go through college on GI Bill, and you can't, yeah, GI Bill basically doesn't allow for, anything besides paying your tuition. So I had to sell cannabis actually to pay for my art and my art supplies. That was the facts. So when my friend says we're going down, we're going to smoke a joint at this rally, and it was on the quad at West Virginia University. And I just remember being so terrified, and we rolled the biggest joint of crap. And we smoked it down there. And I remember the woman that was there, her name was Debbie Goldsberry, I would come to find out later. She held out this piece of cloth, basically. And I remember reaching out and touching it, and just this kind of epiphany is, wow, this is more than about just prohibition and lies. I came in kind of pre-DARE, so back in southern Louisiana, the sheriff came in with a briefcase and opened up this briefcase, and this briefcase had every known drug to man. Michael, if you actually check from time to time on eBay, they do sell those. They're basically old, education tools, but that's what the police would do. And, you know, marijuana bad, drugs bad, everything bad. So, was really, you know, I remember even having a talk with a friend because I was worried about his cannabis use. So, you know, to go there, get that book, The Emperor Wears No Clothes, and the more I read it, the more information. And then next thing I know, I was going to parties. I had a girlfriend break up with me because, oh, ATN, all you do is go to parties and talk about marijuana. I'm sick of it. I'm like, okay, whatever. Then I got activated for my war, actually 30 years ago yesterday. And it was really, really, really frustrating because I sustained injuries days after the war officially ended. So I ended up having a heat stroke, and I ended up having suffering from Gulf War syndrome because I was with a very advanced unit attached to the French Foreign Legion. And as soon as we would roll in, clear out areas, beat feet, move on. And demolition just came in right behind us and just started blowing up all these huge underground bunkers. And my unit and others got hit with the fallout from all that VX, nerve gas, all that fun shit. And apparently it really hit me. And I suffered from Gulf War syndrome. I came back, started to have major pain issues. And when I was in Germany, I was recommended by a doctor who said, try hashish. And I laughed because I was like, what the fuck? You know? I didn't know necessarily what to do. And I got tired of making criminals out of my friends because now that I had and liked cannabis, I didn't know what else to do. So for me, I was kind of confused for a long time. I tried to be normal. I tried to do the VA pill system, and it just led to sleepless nights. I just had no idea what to necessarily do anymore. So from there, I happened to move to California. And when I got out here, it happened to be fortuitous that that lady, Debbie Goldsberry, that I told you about, had moved out here with the Cannabis Action Network. And I inadvertently got wind of their first meeting, and that first meeting had Dr. Todd McArea. And I about lost my mind because Dr. Todd McArea, if you don't know who he was also a veteran, but he also compiled a lot of the research for the US government regarding cannabis. And he has this green book. It's absolutely amazing. And he basically said, kid, I would like to study your Gulf War syndrome. I want to study, your cannabis use, and I'll be your doctor. And I was like, okay, yes, I need this. The pills weren't working, and I ended up going to 4 different VA facilities and mentioning my cannabis use. And then I was labeled a known drug user. And when I would refuse to leave, they would then send security. And depending on facility, 2 to 4 very large people would show up, and I would quietly be escorted off of the VA facility. Probably me saying some very not nice things, trying to hold my shit together, but being very angry. I had traded pot for Marinol, and I could trade my other pills, my Valium and shit, to another veteran who was a Vietnam veteran who actually had Marinol. And I would start trying Marinol. And then I would try to talk to the VA about, hey, what about Marinol? And they'd be like, nah, not kid. You got to go. Sorry, you're a known drug user. Sorry. So, you know, for me, I gave up on the VA. You know, it took them, you know, 3 different tries just to get my designation for my Gulf War syndrome. And then because they just kept losing my paperwork over and over again. You know, it's a common problem amongst veterans. When you submit your paperwork, for some reason, it can disappear. So yeah, 3 different times. It took till 97. And also that same year in 97 is when the VA sent me a 7-page dossier of absolutely not a single-spaced listing of every chemical that we were exposed to due to those, you know, boom booms, you know, that they happen to do, you know. So yeah, for me, I ended up getting involved as a volunteer with the Cannabis Action Network. I ended up doing rallies in 47 states, educating people on grassroots style. Yeah, 1993 and 94 were some incredible times, and I met a whole bunch of great people. And for me, you know, the movement was kind of being reborn. I got to travel with LV Musica. She basically got in this van with 3 other smelly fucking hippies, and off we fucking drove around the country, going to free speech areas at college campuses. And, you know, she would whip out her tin of 300 joints, be like, this is legal marijuana from the federal government. And we'd be like, she was impossible not to turn anyone because we had a small speaker system. So she would speak and tell her story. And then eventually I started to find my voice and started to talk about my story about, I'm a Gulf War veteran. I use cannabis. I should be able to have access to cannabis, but I can't because when I mention it to VA, they physically remove me. Kind of a problem. So I just continued to work in the movement. I worked in hemp for a while, for working in DC, importing and exporting hemp. And then I came out to California again in 97 and 99. I moved back up to California, left my ex-wife, and literally with nothing but the shirt on my back and my friend's couch, because her ex, he left her couch at my house. And so she's like, can you bring a couch and I'll let you stay in my house for a month? I was like, okay. So I literally rented a U-Haul just for a couch. I literally had just a bag of clothes on my back and came up here, and I worked in the underground. I worked for Richard Lee. I helped actually build the Bulldog, which was the first underground smoke shop in America, right there in Oaksterdam. It was a former Ethiopian restaurant that I had to clean out by hand. And it was amazing. They turned into an amazing gathering place for cannabis and people. And I found myself working at the Oakland Patients Group. And through there, Ed Rosenthal saw me and was like, hey, come work for me. I want you to be my, you know, my grow manager and oversee, because he saw what I was doing with the plants at OPG, because we had to grow underground in sand walls, ladies and gentlemen. So when it rained in the fall, I was up to my knees in water. Yeah, electric above, up to my knees in water, tending plants. Yeah, crazy shit. Don't recommend it. But, you know, that's what you do in Prohibition, to do what you have to do to make things happen. And from that, I got tired of working for Ed, and I got hired at Berkeley Patients Group. And when I came into Berkeley Patients Group, I had an understanding as a grower and as a patient, and I shaped Berkeley Patients Group and how to treat patients from all my negative experiences from the VA. Everybody should be treated with respect. Everybody should be treated like a human being. Because most importantly, we don't know if today is somebody's first day or if it's their last day, and treat them with the respect accordingly. Because I've had that. There's nothing more painful than having a relative come and say, hey, my son, brother, sister, brother, father died, but your cannabis and what you did has actually prolonged their lives and helped them through those times. And I just wanted to say thank you. And that right there, that's why I'm in the movement. That I have, you know, I just kind of knew that killing people and maiming them, not good. Helping others changed my soul, changed my heart, found purpose, and was able to rally others around me. And over time, what they told me 30 years ago, we would never see it in our lifetime. Well, "15 legal states later, here we are." And I have embraced this movement, made it my life, made it my choice. And I wanted to help others because back then we didn't necessarily have the science of why this cannabis was helping me live my life. And since then, science has caught up. But we had a friend that had multiple sclerosis with spasticity so bad that within one puff of a joint, within 9 seconds, he stopped shaking. I didn't need science to know any better. I didn't have to worry about anything further. As far as I was concerned, you know, we took the risks. I would rather, you know, die on my feet than live on my knees, which is kind of why we have always taken it on the chin when we lose, because we lose. We have not had all these victories. We had many, many years and decades of losses. But through those momentums, and by having those Jacks and having those Dr. Todds and having those Dennis Perones, is why we have the Michael Krawitz, and why we have the ATN, and why we have the Ricardo, the George, the James, the Tony, the Robert, and the Brian. Because they showed us the way. They lit it and held their torch up or their joint up high in the dark, and we were like, hey, pass it over here. And we keep it moving, and we'll keep it moving along, and we'll hold it up in the dark until, you know, eventually we get it right and everybody is free and no longer in jail for cannabis. Because that's the other reason I'm in it. I thought that if he can save my life and I can help others, then of course no one should go to jail for a pot, you know. And right now, we have brothers and sisters in jail for this weed that we're sitting around smoking right now. So it's a holiday season. So don't forget to adopt a patient. Go adopt somebody in jail. Write them a letter. Write them a Christmas card. You know, we have POWs that are cannabis POWs right now. You know, some are getting released, some are getting reprieves. But the social justice aspect of changing and helping people's lives for the better has always cemented my resolve in this movement, to where I fought the government and won, you know. So that's for me why cannabis and the cannabis movement. I've met all my best friends, which I have many. I've met all of you because of this. And for me, I have no idea what I would have been doing otherwise. Honestly, no absolute clue. And I kind of fell into it, but I kept my feet first into it because the social justice aspect and helping people was affecting change regionally and locally, and you could start to see groundswell happening. And now 15, legal states, how many medical states currently? We've got a few states that have nothing going on there. Looking at you, Nebraska. Yeah. So, we still have work to do. So what keeps you in the movement? Aha. We're going to start back around again. Let's see. Rico, what keeps you in the movement?
The fuck you aspect. To put it, I mean, succinctly, the fuck you aspect of it. I use cannabis as a tool to help me engage more meaningfully in a lifestyle that I wanted. I didn't want to be the angry guy locked up in my house, boozed up, pilled out, drooling on myself, just fucked up. And so when I introduced cannabis, I was able to feel again. I was able to open up again. And I was able to explore the world around me. And when I landed at the University of Arizona, it gave me an opportunity then to learn more about other people's transitions from the military back into civilian life and then into academia. Learn about others' experiences in war and military, different eras, stuff like that. And volunteering became my drug, really. That was my drug. Helping other people became my drug. Cannabis was, again, just a tool. And it's a useful tool, but it's not a silver bullet. You know what I mean? And it's important, I think, that we put that out there and we lead with that also, is that this tool requires you to do work outside of just taking that into your body. You know what I mean? So getting out, volunteering, being active in my community, being there for other people, to be that support when they needed it, like I needed it and still need it from time to time. I've been fortunate to be able to build a solid network of friends and confidants that I go to on a regular basis, and especially with 2020 and quarantine and all this other stuff. It's been even more important this year to lean heavy on my network and on the tools that I was able to pick up and glean from the work that I did those 3 years at the VA. That was work. I showed up to work every day at the VA. That was my place of business. And my duty was to learn about what was going on, why I was reacting the way that I was, and to acknowledge the damage it was having, not just on myself, but on my family members and the community, and how selfish I was being, right? And that was work. So after that, giving back felt like a joyful activity, and it still does. It gets me up every day working with y'all, people like you, to help do good in the community, to help do good in our country, in our world, and to connect with other people that are doing good, especially in these times. And so when I was on campus, like I said, we were working on suicide prevention and stuff like that. And I knew that this had worked for me. There was no question. You look at the accolades and stuff like that. But just like how I didn't want to bring up the fact that I couldn't sleep, that I was boozing too heavy, that I was overreacting and having episodes of rage, uncontrollable fits of anger where I was not acting normal. You know what I mean? All that stuff. It helped me go into a place that was more retroflect or introspective and self-seeking for the answers that I needed. But I couldn't let anybody else know that. I couldn't let anybody else know what I was feeling on one hand and what was working on the other hand. And so in the military, I was like, man, You speak up, you're losing your job. You're going to get put on the desk. You might just get kicked out of the Army with their downsizing and stuff like that. That's a risk. Just talking about, you know, I can't sleep, PTSD, label, stigma, you know, non-deployable, bum. The fuck out of the military. We can't use you anymore. We fucking, and so when I got to the University of Arizona, and I got all these people saying great things, but I still have the secret. And, you know, for me, like the boozing and stuff, I was still, you know, trying to fit in, and I started boozing again. I got a DUI, but my support network was still there. Support network, my bar friends, right? And, you know, when I met Doc and the work that she was doing, and I saw the way that she was treated, and there were some other things that went on campus, the fuck you factor went up and through the fucking charts. And it was just like, all right, man, this game's changed then, because you guys are just being dicks. You know what I mean? And you're waving your false flag of patriotism, talking about how you support the troops, talking about how nothing's off the table, and we're gonna do anything that we can to help curb this suicide epidemic, to help make sure that these veterans aren't being prescribed harmful narcotics, pharmaceuticals, but narcotics, some of which have warnings of suicidal ideation on them, right? And so it sparked off this whole adversarial role with the university system, with the legislature, with the Arizona Board of Regents, right? I even got to a point where I was tired of not being able to have a conversation with my VA physician. And the one time he finally cracked and was like, okay, I'll talk to you about it. He was like, you know what I could do for you? I could prescribe you something for impotence. I said, excuse me, what? Yeah, you know, it's well known that cannabis causes impotence. And I was taken aback. I was like, what the fuck did you just say, dude? And I got up quick, and he kind of did one of these numbers and was like, man, you're a punk, dude. You're a punk. And I walked out. You know, he thought I was gonna hit him. I was just like, I'm done with this. Like, I'm not gonna sit there and be disrespected. Like, I don't know where you got that information, but I left the meeting. And it took a couple of weeks or whatever, and then people not listening. Doc Sisley didn't get her job back. They were still sitting on research. They were still doing all kinds of stuff to obstruct the research and the questions, the answers to these questions that we all have. And so I lost it one day. I had a breakdown, lost all fucks, and went and put my my gym shorts on, got a tank top on, got my one ID out of my wallet, rolled the fattest joint that I could muster, and took my happy ass down to the VA over here at Southern Arizona VA Healthcare System. And I called my girlfriend, let her know what I was doing. I had my friend who's a lawyer on speed dial in the truck. And then I walked up to the window where they, you know, you give your script, they give you the pills and stuff like that. And I just looked at the lady who was there. No expression, just I looked at her or whatever. And she said, can I help you? And I took the joint and I sparked it, and I just looked at her and I took a couple hits, and she said, what are you doing? And I blew it under the window. And she said, what are you, sir? And I took a couple more hits, and I just looked at her and I said, I'll be over there. There being the chairs in the waiting area, fully expecting to get just hemmed up by the VA police. And so I'm sitting there, I'm smoking, and I'm looking around, I'm smoking, and all of a sudden there's just clouds going into the pharmacy, right? And people are starting to smell it, and they're like, man, what's going on? What the fuck? And then this lady looked at me, and she said, what are you doing? And I looked at her, I said, I'm making a statement. She said, oh, okay. And so I went back or whatever, and they called a volunteer who must have been like a Vietnam vet or something like that, white, snow white hair. And he come up to me and said, excuse me, son. Yes. Thoroughly baked at this point. I'm really, really stoned. I smoked almost half the joint, just sitting there trying to get their attention. He said, "Sir, I'm going to need you to go to the designated smoking area." And I just kind of thoroughly defeated. My ego just done. Like, fuck. You know, they just sent my grandfather in to ask me to go to the designated smoking area in a very polite way. Moves on me, right? So I was like, well, shit. Yeah, I think I could do that, I think. So I just got up and I walked back outside and I went to the designated smoking area and I sat there by myself, just thoroughly perplexed, stunned, not sure what just happened. Tried to smoke the rest of the doobie, but it was just like a wasted effort. So I was like, man, fuck, I put it out and walked back to my shit and drove home and just sat there looking around the whole rest of the day like, what the fuck? And it was like, what is it gonna take? What is it going to take for us to get the message across that we don't want their fucking pills? And that's not putting anything bad on people. There's certain things where pills save lives. But to put people on pills, multiple pills that lead into other pills for fucking years and decades, you know, which cause all kinds of problems. And then to have the nerve to say that we can't experiment with the plant that hasn't killed anybody ever itself, give me a fucking break. After surviving explosions, ambushes, and all that other stuff, all the other exposure to depleted uranium, burn pits, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The anthrax shot. Let's talk about that little fucking gem. You know what I mean? All the smallpox vaccinations and stuff. Oh, how about the stuff they give you for that Trump was trying to take or whatever for anyway, bad stuff. I've been documented to be exposed with depleted uranium also. And you would think that having survived the experience of just being in the military and being pumped with God knows what, that we would be able to exercise the very freedom we fought for or took an oath to protect and defend when we get home. When we're not trying to disturb anybody or do anything other than live a happy, healthy, and productive life. So yeah, the fuck you factor definitely keeps me going. Definitely. I'm sorry for the rant, but yeah.
Hey, that's what we're here to do. We're here to talk. George, what keeps you in it?
Well, kind of piggybacking off what you said at the end, definitely what gives me no question that it's where I belong is when I just get a private message or an email from somebody that I got onto the program. I helped a number of vets get on the program, and a lot of times I don't even get to meet them face to face. But to get contacted by those people and to be told that it helped them be productive, just like it helped me, you know, just to hear those kind of things, it definitely makes me know that I'm in the right spot for sure. And the other thing is that I just, since I've started this, I truly feel like it's my purpose, kind of like everybody else is saying. And so it's mostly for selfish reasons that I stay in, because I feel like I get so much help from helping others. And truly, I didn't feel like myself for like 15 years of my life. And after using cannabis for a couple of years, I literally had a number of people in my family that said, including my mother, that said, you know, it's nice to have the George that we used to know back. So I used to say it saved my life. And I still think it did. That, like, if I would have stayed on the pills like they wanted to, like there just wasn't a good ending to the way that was going. But now I more aptly, it gave me back my life, because once you're saved from that hole of the pharmaceuticals and all that shit and the self-destructive behavior, that's not it. That's not it. I mean, the object is to get your productive life back, right? To lead a productive, happy life, to give that back to your family, to be a productive member to your family and to the people that you love around you. So the fact that it's given me my life back keeps me motivated to keep doing it. And hearing from patients, like I said, usually it's out of the blue, somebody I might not even remember until I see their name or something, but that is hugely fulfilling, to do some little minor act and get them on the program and get a doctor's fee waived, you know, $125 fee. A small little act like that took 15 minutes out of my day sometime, 8 months ago, and then to get a private message back, a heartfelt private message, not always from the person using it. So it's just as moving when I get it from a spouse, when they say they've got their husband back. So that's why I stick around, for sure. Mostly selfish reasons, because it gave to me, and I just think it's the right thing to do, to keep giving it back to the world. I hope that we're seeing the end of the fight that you guys have been fighting for 30 years, and that we can be fighting for the right laws in the next 5 to 10 years, and not just fighting to get access. Every American should have access to cannabis if they want it. So that's all I got on that.
Thank you, George. Robert, what keeps you in this?
Thinking about, this question, I would really have to say what keeps me in this movement is the progression of the movement itself. So the movement around cannabis is constantly evolving, and it's something we really haven't seen in this country in a really long time, of just a booming industry with tons of potential and opportunity. But the motivational factor and what keeps me going is that in that evolutionary process, it feels as if patients that utilize this plant as medicinal are being left behind. And as that progression and evolution happens, they are being pushed in a predicament to where they're not receiving adequate medical treatment in conjunction with their conditions. And so my focus in really staying in this movement is ensuring that patients are thought of first and foremost as the forerunners of this movement, as the people that really are the ones that created the movement in the first place and are the ones that are really in need of it. And it's that need and communal support that really keeps me motivated and keeps me really in this industry, to where if I could be a voice and I can constantly push for change and push for patients to come first in whatever avenue of this program, and all of its therapeutic value, then we can start understanding that us as a human race can find more therapeutic value in other things too, that aren't technically looked at as the norm. And so to kind of keep it simple, that's really why I'm here and why I keep doing what I do.
Thank you. Next up is James. James, you said you've been doing this since you were 17. So You know, apparently there's got to be some sort of motivator there that's kept you in it all these decades. You unmute. There you go.
Like I said, I've been following this dream to do it freely for the best part of my life, and yet not go to jail at the same time. You know, and you know, like I really strongly got using it, but it was, as you said, sticks and stems and seeds and bricks and I you know, until just, I'd say the last 6-7 years, I've been getting that. That's what I got. The last 6-7 years have really evolved, and I'd like to see it even evolve more to where you know, I'd like to see it evolve in all aspects to where people aren't in prison for it ever. I just can't see people going to jail for a plant, and never could. But I have seen people go, and I've been a nasty bugger the first part of my life when I came out of the service. I'm on my 4th wife, and so like, what can I say? But you know, I got 39 years in with this one, so it ain't too bad. I just kept throwing them away. You know, it was like, nah. You know, it's just like they'd party it and then they'd burn out, and I didn't burn out. You know, it was like, and that's how I was when I come back from the service. Unfortunately, I was a junkie, and I don't tell many people, but I was a junkie when I came home from Vietnam. And well, I'll tell you what, man, I played that game for a lot of years, and until I met this wife, and by golly, she didn't want to put up with that shit. So I was able to just say, fuck this, you know. But I'd been on so many drugs, and have been from my employment. I've had my back broke, and then I've had both my legs busted. I've had like 140 different kinds of surgeries and shit done on me. I worked in a nut house for criminally insane, and it wasn't the easiest job in the world. And like I said, I ended up pretty busted up, and then the military gave me Agent Orange to boot. And so now I don't breathe too good. But I got off all that pain shit. That was just, why would you bother? You know, it's like I was on morphine. I was on Dilaudid. I was on one after the other. I just can't count everything. And I was a zombie. I was strictly in bed. I had a nurse come and just give me a shot every couple of days into a pump. Still got the pump in me. And, you know, I was kind of content being bedridden, but boy, there comes a time you want to get back into life, and they just had me so messed up. I was going to die. And I don't know, there was quite a few people that told me to get ready. And I was like, I got to change this. And then once I found some good smoke, I got back in the ball game. I got riding motorcycles again. I got crazy again. I'm back out there on the streets. I'm back out there going with George when we go to places for the veterans and stuff. You know, out to what the hell was it? Weedstock or some damn thing out in Las Vegas. Just so I rented a van out there so I could travel the veterans around out there. But you know, I do little things like that. I like to do things like that, and once in a while, my wife lets me loose. So yeah, it was a cannabis cup. That's what it was in Vegas. We almost got blew away at that thing. It was so damn cold and windy out there. But it was a good time. All right, guys, it was my pleasure. I enjoyed listening to everyone, and I hope that we can progress this to a point where we can get it across the government to leave some more people out of jail, because I don't think any of us are criminals. And, you know, I'm tired of being treated like one. And that's my say so. Amen, brothers.
Absolutely, James. We completely understand. 100%. Tony, what keeps you in it, buddy?
What keeps me in the movement? Well, I guess, it's the feeling that it makes a difference. We can, like, I can get a job and help my family, my wife, and, a few kids maybe. That's a small little circle I'm helping out. I can own a company and help maybe 5 families. That's good. I'm doing well. But whenever I work to change a law that's so, outdated, it's affecting so many people's lives. When I work to change that law and it affects 7 million people, that was keep me in the movement right there, knowing that just that little bit of effort makes a difference, and it's going to help a lot of people.
All right. I feel you there too. All righty. Michael, you've also been doing this for decades. So the movement wasn't out, but it definitely it came back around. So what keeps you in it?
I started out when I started as an activist in the early 90s, mid 90s. The world was a lot different. The marijuana movement was a lot different. The goal was to protect the plant from annihilation. That was quite literally the goal. There was an attempt to release this thing called Fusarium oxysporum, and cannabis wasn't grown anywhere on earth legally. And it was really a scary moment. And then we had medical cannabis, and worked on medical cannabis access and sort of human rights. And now we're starting to work on regulated access and adult regulated access, and essentially the end of prohibition. That means the end of prohibition. And all along, really, the only reason that I've ever been here is because no one was doing what I thought needed to be done. It's just that simple. If I had somebody, especially some nice young professional right out of Harvard, Howard, whatever types to take this on, I'd gladly walk away. But as you know, at the end, a lot of the stuff that I work on, all the stuff that I work on is out there, just isn't even understood when I on it, let alone anybody working on it. In fact, we're almost at the goal line with this thing, with the vote next month, and vast majority of people don't know it's even happening or don't understand it. It's just way out there stuff. I don't know why the rank and file movement doesn't do these things. Why? If I was to tell you that you can United Nations and step up and speak for cannabis and speak for the movement on earth, there'd be nobody in front of you in line to do so, would you be like, nah, bullshit, right? I'm telling you the truth. I was the one that went up to the mic and talked, so I can tell you there's nobody in front of me. Robert was there to witness. He could tell you. It's just trippy stuff. I'm very glad. I tell people, there's a story somewhere from the Roanoke Times. I thought it was hysterical. She came up to do a story on the museum project, and she wound up doing like 3 different stories, one on cannabinoids and cannabis and just medical stuff. She thought it was fascinating. Another one on the museum, and then another one that she titled on me personally, and she titled it "Local Veteran Chooses Activism Over Cannabis." And I love that title. I love that headline. I was talking to her for a long time, because this interview, it must have been hours we were talking to each other. She went through a whole notebook right in front of my house, the cats on her lap and stuff. And I was telling her about, Netherlands, and I was telling her about Czech Republic, and I was telling her about, just all these fantastic places, Hawaii and different places around the world where I've got to experience just fantastic cannabis. And And she realized that there was really nothing keeping me there, right there in Virginia, going through no access to cannabis. I could go somewhere quite easily. And if it was all about cannabis, if it was just about getting access, if that was my only goal, then she all of a sudden realized that I could easily satisfy that. I had the veterans compensation. I could just jump in the car and I could be living somewhere with easy access tomorrow. But I'm staking my ground. And knock on wood, the governor just put out the release that we should have our legalization in order this year, decriminalized last year. So Virginia is changing very, very quickly. But yeah, I'm ready. I've been telling people I'm ready to sit on my porch, pet my cat, and smoke a bowl, pass it on to somebody else. As soon as they're doing what needs to be done, I'm ready to go home.
You've earned your porch time, sir. All righty, Brian, what keeps you in it, buddy?
It's not over. We're not mission complete. There's still people that don't have access. There's still people being prosecuted as criminals. That's what keeps me in this movement. And being in a well-regulated industry here in Colorado, I realized that it's not gonna be over even after everybody does have access. There's people that need to stand up and be a voice where nobody else is, or just add to what is already being done and making sure that we are not left in the wayside, that the cannabis doesn't turn into a big corporation, a big industry, and just keeping the plant sacred. That's why I'm still here.
Thank you. Thank you all. For myself, as stated, I've been in the marijuana cannabis movement, and it's as one of the oldest dispensaries in the country. The 21 years, my heart's still in it as it was from the beginning, and it's just every day helping people, working on the change, striving for the change. It enriches my soul and has given me a depth of character because it's just so intertwined. I mean, my news is cannabis. I keep up on, anybody who's got cases. If somebody's been busted, I found lawyers for people. It's still that way. Taking our networks and sharing them with each other so that we can all prosper and make things better for all. Is it where we want to be? No. Are we better today than it was yesterday? Yes. Will we make a better tomorrow? Absolutely, because so many people striving to help other people, so it affects change and makes change, and it spearheads movements that, I mean, look at what you're doing internationally, Michael. You could be opening up country after country with, Mexico becoming, voting on it the other day. And if it finally gets ratified, that's 3 countries already going ahead to, that single convention treaty and its class 4, Schedule 4 classification for cannabis. And you undo that, and it's still an uphill battle, but you undo that, then many other countries are interested in coming on, and I see Asia coming on strong, especially the Thailand, Malaysia, all throughout there. They used to have epic cannabis, that I've heard of. So, let's see. Oh, we've been joined by Pearson. So Pearson, we've asked 2 questions tonight. Why the cannabis movement, and what keeps you in the cannabis movement?
Well, I guess that's pretty easy. Can you hear me all right?
Lima Charlie.
Roger that. So I got into it. I mean, I experimented, let's say, when I was a kid or when I was younger. But after I got out of the Marine Corps, I went right to the VA and walked out with opiates and benzodiazepine, and which was the start of years of substance abuse, mainly through the prescription drugs that were prescribed to me by the doctors. And it's not something that I blame them for. They didn't really have any option. They were trying to make their patient be able to live a comfortable life with, I mean, from come to find out with their hands tied, you know. It wasn't something that I knew about medical cannabis. I knew I wasn't shy from it at all. I've always enjoyed it, except for when I was in the military. But it became something else when I decided to get off of all those medications. It gave me some relief while I was cold turkeying a bunch of different, like a cocktail of narcotics. I was on Klonopins, Klonopins, SSRIs, Oxycontin. One time I was on Oxycontin, MS Cotton, Percocets, and oxycodone and fentanyl patches at the same time, all prescribed by the same doctors through the VA Medical Center. And I kept on trying to get into rehab, and they're inpatient. And I kept on getting denied because they had beds saved for suicidal veterans, and their behavioral health clinic was linked up with their substance abuse or their rehab. So 3 times I went in there, got, stripped and searched and put scrubs on, and they told me that I had to wait because somebody else came in that was suicidal, and they were looking for me to say that, which I wasn't. I've never, besides in the line of work, had the urge to hurt anybody or myself. So I locked myself in my apartment and just used cannabis, and it helped me get through it. I mean, it sucked. I mean, I felt like I was going to die every day, but for about a month, because I was also getting off methadone, which has a much longer half-life than traditional pain medications, along with benzodiazepine, which is one of the few drugs that you can potentially die from coming off of. So that's what started it. Cannabis helped me get through some of the toughest situations I have had to fight within myself, and I knew if it helped me, it would probably help many others. And I honestly believe that I should have died. I mean, I was on fentanyl. I was 2 fentanyl patches, 2 different prescription fentanyl patches at once, with all these breakthrough meds, and just a bunch of other stuff with pain. Sleeping pills and anxiety pills and sleep apnea medication, and yeah, it helped me get through it. This plant, this simple thing that just gave me enough to not fall back into it. And I mean, there's several other factors, but that was something that I just realized how ridiculous it is and how dangerous it is to have it unavailable as an option to doctors. It's never killed. I mean, preaching to the choir, but it's something that you can just stop and not feel like you're going to die off of. And Not saying that it's healthy to do that, but I'm saying it's not a physical dependency like the majority of the medications they give for the symptoms of the things that or the injuries I've occurred in while I was in the military. So that's what got me here. And what was your second question? I'm sorry.
What about cannabis movement keeps you going, keeps you in it?
Every day getting to see your beautiful faces. Well, it's a special community, the advocacy part of it, because a lot of us aren't getting paid. We're in it for the right reasons, and the ones that are really the go-getters, and the ones that are really in it for the right reasons, they're the people that I want to surround myself with, whether or not they are getting paid or not. But it's something that it's a support structure, and a lot of us that have been doing it for a little while. It's only been half a decade for me. I'm going to say, and make that sound long, but you really get to know people. You get to see, you hear it through the grapevine, and you find out who are the genuine people, and you don't want to let them down. And we're on top of it. I'm way too stubborn to stop. I am in it for the long haul to make sure that this plant is accessible to anybody that needs it. And I'll die before I stop. And I hope it doesn't come to that, but it's a lifestyle, and it's a passion, I guess. And it's a community that's really there for each other. And it's something that I find purpose in.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you for showing up. We appreciate you being with us and making us aware. We've all taken different journeys to get here, and it's always fascinating to see how each one of us arrived, yet here we are together, and what we'll accomplish together, hey, we don't know yet, but we know that we are doing good, we are helping each other, and we are lifting each other up. So as long as we can continue to do that, that the purpose is very much there, and I very much feel it. I am constantly moved by it, and needless to say, I look forward to more of these discussions. We're just about coming up here, post the hour and a half mark here. So, Michael, did you have something that you wanted to impart, or do you want to say that for later? Michael Kravitz. Well, I guess Michael's not there. So be it. All right. Well, with that, I'm going to wrap up tonight's Veterans Cannabis Roundtable. So I thank everybody for being here tonight. Rico Prieta, pardon me, Robert Kowalski, Tony Landry, Pearson, Kennedy Crosby, George Armstrong, Brian Ortega, Michael Krawitz. Oh, there he is. Hey, Michael, did you have anything to say before we go, or you want to, or that post?
Yeah, sorry, I had to deal with some household issues here. I wanted to share that news with you. Up till now, we didn't have the U.S. position on the vote for December. So we have the position now officially. Ricardo was there to witness it as well. The USA stands behind the removal of cannabis from Schedule 4 in the treaty. Yeah, very big deal. liable to have some very strong implications as we move forward, sort of untying the hands of the next administration on cannabis movement around the schedules. So we'll see what will happen.
Epic. All right. Great work, Michael. Thank you very much for your hard work and dedication and your years of sacrifice making our world literally a better place for cannabis. Amy and Robert, absolutely. Amy King and Robert Kowalski both owed thanks as well. And we, as Veterans Action Council, we signed on, as well as Berkeley Patients Group, the National Cannabis Industries Association. We signed on as well. So proud to be backing and supporting, and hopefully will affect some change. We know it's not a slam dunk. We will have to see what actually happens on December 2nd, but we still got a little bit of time left. We got a couple weeks, so hang in there, ladies and gentlemen. With that, I want to thank you all again for coming tonight and for sharing your time and your experiences. What makes us all unique in this movement has moved us in many different methods and methodologies, and I think that the future is bright for the future of cannabis as more states come online, more access becomes available, and hopefully, you know, thanks to what y'all have done there in the UN, it'll be worldwide, which could spark then, you know, interstate commerce, and then, you know, y'all could get some California bud, I could get some, you know, Colorado bud, you know, then you could import it into Virginia and Arizona, you know, fun stuff like that, you know, I want some of that Meigs County up there in Ohio coming out here, you know, there's good
Gainesville Green.
Right? I'd say good Pennsylvania, but when I grew in Pennsylvania, I had a deer eat 41 out of 42 plants. So yeah, got to work on that, PA. God damn it. Deers like pot, if you don't know. Yes, they do. They like it all too well, especially a week and a half. About 2 weeks before harvest too. And they ate the living. Yeah, of course. Yeah, they were with lay marks.
That's when it's going to happen. If it's going to happen, that's when it's going to happen.
Yeah.
I hope Hawaiian Outdoor makes a big comeback.
Oh yeah, yeah. Thai, Indonesian. I want Michoacan. I want some of all that. You know, I've heard of Honduran. You know, yeah, hell yeah. I want some of that Matanuska up there from Alaska, Pearson. I want some.
I got some seeds if you want some.
That's always a guess, and when I come up there, I'll grab them from you.
Yeah.
All righty, beautiful people. I thank you all again for being here tonight and for sharing your experiences. And
hey, Tim, can I never mind. I was going to share screen. I got a good picture of a couple people.
Go ahead.
Okay. It's disabled.
Try it now.
All right. Oh, you guys see that?
Yep.
Oh shit! What am I getting? What am I doing? I look like I'm having an unfortunate.
I remember that. Our little high time summit.
Oh man, that was such a great night. That was a fun.
That was the first time I met you guys.
That was great. What was that? 16?
Yeah, it was 4 years ago from what my phone says.
Yeah. Fucking Wider hit me up and he was like, "Hey man, I got this round table going on. You want to come?" I was like, "Yeah, when is it?" It's like next week. It was like 3 days away or whatever. So it's like, fuck, yeah, all right. And so I told my boss I was working at a grow over here in Tucson. I was like, "Hey man, I got to go to this thing." It's like, "Okay, where's it at?" It's Philadelphia. It's like, "What?" Yeah, I'll be right back. So I got in my truck and dipped out. and drove all the way to Philadelphia and sleep in my truck in the rest areas all the way there. I actually got pulled over by a canine in Tennessee. Gave me the yeah. But that was a fun trip, man. That was a good time.
They take all your shit in Tennessee too.
He was trying to take my truck. I had the temporary plates on my truck, and he come up, and first thing he did was pop the air vent on my dash. And so I had my stash. I was packing. I fucking had weed. I had my stash in this hookah box that my cousin had given me from Afghanistan. It came with a hookah in it, but I just took the hookah out, kept the box, and then put it. It was hidden. It was nice and hidden, so you couldn't smell anything or whatever. And then he told me to get in the back or go into his car, and so that's weird. And so I went and joined him in the passenger seat in his car. But he had a canine, he had a dog. So the first thing I did was like, oh, puppy. I love dogs. I'm like, oh, puppy, you know, and me as a former MP, like, I'm not threatened by this dude. I see a dog, I'm gonna say hello to it. And so he's like, sir, don't talk to the dog. And he just gave me a third degree. It's a real douchebag about it or whatever. And then he ended up letting me go. But then I gave Dan Sky a big cannabis stock that I had chopped down, gave Mike Whiter a big cannabis stock. The first thing I did after that I got pulled over was pull over into the rest area and pack a bowl and light it and then continue on my way.
Thank you for sharing that, Pearson. That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's outside of Connie's Rick Rack, isn't it?
I believe so. Yeah, that whole block was just chimneyed.
Yeah, that was at Connie's Rick Rack. It was put on by Mike Whiter with Operation Overmed. Dan Sky from High Times moderated the panel. And I mean, Dakota Blue was on that, Sean Judge from Neva, Therese Carasino was there. A lot of great peeps, man. That was fun.
Yeah. Yeah, it was good. I flew in from Philly, I'm from Alaska. I don't think I even knew about it until I landed. Just so happened.
Dude, you got the cover of High Times. We wrote after that, so put that picture back up. After that picture, we went over to Mike's house and Dakota Blue was rolling those torpedoes. You know what I mean? And we were both doing we did the picture thing with the Kevlar and stuff like that. But yeah, right after that pit, we were getting ready to go to Mike's house to go like just get astronomically high.
Dude, I think I was like the most high. I think it was the most high I've ever been. Actually,
they just kept
to that point.
Hold on, check it out. I got the picture right here somewhere.
Yeah, well, they wanted a picture on the front of High Times with a cloud of smoke as you're blowing out a cloud of smoke. So every time you took a hit and you blew out a cloud of smoke, and they did about 30 takes. So yeah, 30 takes is like 6 big joints. By the time he was done, man, he was more wasted than you can get.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a dirty job, but somebody's got to do it.
Right.
Exactly. We're doing the hard job. We're doing the hard jobs in the movement.
I was getting tears in my eyes. I was like, holy shit, like what if this is a marathon? I felt like I just got put in the cannabis Iron Man or something like that.
We can do it. You can do it. You can do it. Hang in there, man.
And the crazy part about this was I was getting my pictures taken in I've been filmed the same day 4 years, the same day today 4 years ago. Not today. When the film crew was up here the other day, it was the same day that we took those pictures. Pretty crazy. And yeah, the shoot the other day was cool. I'm excited to see what they came up with, and I refuse to look at them.
Hey, can you see my screen? Yeah.
No.
Whiter sent me some of the pictures.
Oh yeah.
And I framed one of them.
Fucking right.
Yeah, yours was. I still have the cutout of the High Times article. I'm gonna get that from you too.
I got it.
That was like the longest article I've ever written.
All right, I'm gonna shut down this conversation, but we're gonna continue talking. No, you don't have to leave. but I'm going to stop recording now and thank everybody for their time and for our discussion. We are still welcome to hang out here and talk, but I'm just going to finish recording here. I want to thank everybody again, Rico Pereda, George Armstrong, Tony Landry, Pearson Kennedy Crosby, Michael Crowitz, Brian Ortega, Michael Crowitz, all for being here tonight. Y'all have an absolutely wonderful rest of your weekend, and we'll talk to you next week.
Peace.